So today, we are going to look at a case study in which an individual had recently reached out to our company. They're interested in a whole life insurance policy. High cash value is the goal. However, they would like some guidance. They had a couple questions, which were all very, very good questions. I should put it this way. It was apparent that they had done research. However, they mentioned that they would like some guidance before starting a policy. So a couple details here. One, the individual is 31 years old. The company selection. They weren't sure on what insurance company they wanted to go with. They would like to see some options, and they would like to know some of the key details between the different insurance carriers. So what I will always start with here from a recommendation standpoint, or I should say what I would do, is A, the 4 major mutual companies. You will see the highest quality there. And then B, who our company uses the most, are Mass Mutual and Guardian. And the main reason why is A, they're 2 of the 4 major mutual companies, and we've seen the quality performance there. Meaning when we look at real policies that have lived the test of time, we see strong actual cash value performance. We don't see as many cases where illustrations looked beautiful and then the results under-delivered compared to what the illustration showed. That's where people get upset. So again, quality is there, but then with those 2 carriers, you'll also find you've got a lot of flexibility there. And we'll go through a little bit of detail on that too, because this is typically what helps an individual refine their decision-making process. The funding. So 2 things here. The dollar amount. Initially, this individual was considering a range somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000. So quick side note here, if you are providing this information to us on our website, so on ibcglobalinc.com, after you select Start Here, you'll see the first 2 options. You'll be asked to provide just a few sentences with your overall situation. This kind of information, regardless of what your funding is, sometimes it's $100,000 to $200,000. It doesn't matter. A range is extremely helpful, or an exact number if you know exactly what you're looking for. But this is helpful when we begin to put numbers together. Number of years. I liked what he added here. He said at least 10 years. Why is that valuable? Well, the reason why is if he said 10 years or no longer than 10 years, what we could definitely look at is a 10-pay policy. A 10-pay policy allows for premiums to be paid for a maximum of, guess what, 10 years. After that, even if I wanted to, I can no longer make premium payments. But if he says for at least 10 years, what that tells me when we're putting initial illustrations together is to look at options that will allow him to continue to add money if he wants to, but also have the option to stop funding after 10 years. And then lastly, he mentioned that he is interested in using the policy for real estate, so maximizing the cash value is very important there. So let's hit on this piece because this is the most important item up front. Just in working with individuals, what often helps them refine their decision-making process is this guy right here, policy flexibility. Because what I don't want is to have policy feel like a burden where I've got to pay the same dollar amount every month, every year. I feel like I'm restricted. What we found, especially for those that are investing in real estate, is that they want flexibility. This way, they never feel like they're obligated to this large premium or this large bill every year. What happens if they don't have the cash flow to fund the policy? So, from a design standpoint, let's start with this. The funding, $10,000 to $20,000. We're going to look at $20K per year. So if he's funding $20,000 per year, or should say, if he wants to be able to fund up to $20,000 per year, money can go where? Toward his premium or toward the PUA rider. So the premium, in this example, this is going to include the base and also the term insurance rider. Purpose of a term insurance rider? Cheap way, if you don't like the word cheap, cost-effective way to raise the death benefit, which will raise that MEC limit on a policy. But the premium typically does not show up in cash value in the first year, sometimes the first and second year. We want to reduce it $2,000, which is 10% of the total desired funding. Then we've got his PUA rider, which stands for paid up additions. This is the key to maximizing the cash value of a whole life insurance policy, especially when you're looking at the guarantees. Now I can plow another $18,000 per year into that paid up additions rider. Is this required? Meaning, if you set a policy up like this, and $20,000 is the amount you want to pay, do you have to pay $20,000 every year? No. The PUA rider can be set up to be very flexible. Now, important side note, the company selection is absolutely critical here, as all companies have different rules on their PUA riders, and different terminology for that matter. So, quick side note, and I'll talk about this more when we look at the numbers, is when you look at mass, the sweet spot with a product that is designed like this with a 10% minimum premium is if I want to be able to A, fund a policy for a long period of time. So he said at least 10 years. A question I have for him is, do you want the ability to fund longer than 10 years, especially with that 20,000? So if I said, do you want the option to fund 20K per year for 30 years? What's your initial reaction to that? Yeah, I think that might be possible, or no, that's not going to happen. If it's, yeah, I think that might be possible, we can design a policy with that minimum premium of $2,000 and the ability to fund 20K per year with a Mass Mutual policy. So you can have rich cash value up front and also rich cash value long term, flexibility to easily scale down to your minimum premium of $2,000. Very flexible there, which is nice. And again, the option to fund for a long time without triggering a MEC. The trade-off is if the policy is designed properly, we can make payment adjustments one time per year without underwriting. And what you need to do this is their LISR rider, which stands for Life Insurance Supplement Rider. But if you've got that attached and there's still term attached to that, we can scale the payment up and down every year on our anniversary date without any medical underwriting. Guardian, on the other hand, good old Guardian, is great if you wanted a setup like this, where you could commit to the $2,000 per year. So you can pay that annually. You could also pay that over 12 months, meaning that's what you're committed to. And then 100% at your leisure, you can just throw money into PUAs. And when I say at leisure, it's at leisure. You can mail in a check, you can log into an online portal, and just dump the money into the policy. So very, very flexible. What's the trade-off when we look at his options here? Well, here's the trade-off. Guardian policies with a design like this, where I can have that 10% minimum premium, so commit to the minimum and be able to add more at leisure. Typically, from a design perspective and what we have to do with our term rider, is ideal for 10 years or less. Meaning, I want to be able to pay in, call it up to 20K per year for 10 years and then stop, or fund 20K for 10 years, and then after that, I only pay the minimum premium or something like that, a substantially lesser amount than 20K. So a couple items of information there. Let's look at some numbers, shall we? So what we've got here, 4 scenarios that all show the exact same funding side by side. What do you notice here? On the left, under blue, you've got Mass Mutual, and then in green, we've got Guardian. Those are the main colors of each of those carriers, in my opinion. If you go to Guardian's website, you'll see green, Mass Mutual, you'll see blue on their logo. That's why I did that. But anyway, with Mass, we ran 2 different products here, which for someone who would like some guidance, what I found is we don't want to show 10 million options, which I used to do way too much. But at the same time, we want to show some of the most important options, or options that most people have gravitated toward, that maximize the cash value and provide flexibility. So the high early cash value product, this is great for strong early cash values. We can also pay into it up until the age of 85. So remember that point he mentioned, I want to be able to fund it for at least 10 years? And remember where we mentioned MassMutual is great if you want the ability to fund $20,000 per year, not for 10, but for 30 years, you want to keep going? This is one of their products that will allow that. They do have other products that allow that, such as their Whole Life 65 and their Whole Life 100 product, but you can continue to plow money into this policy, meaning you don't have to stop after 10 years. If you wanted to keep on adding 20K, you could. And we'll look at a scenario that demonstrates that. Then we've got a 15-pay policy, which allows funding for guess how long? Maximum of 15 years. So before we said at least 10 years, how about 15 years? We want to go longer than that. If he said yes, I might scratch that and only look at this. If he said, no, 15 years might be my max, then I would consider this and keep it on the initial option spreadsheet. All right. But the difference between these two, you will notice the 15-pay product delivers a stronger overall cash value and death benefit long term. But if we look at year 10, for instance, the high early cash value, you're at 229, whereas the 15-pay, you're at 235. And from a design standpoint, we'll look at it in a minute, very, very similar. You'll see similar base premiums, similar MEC limits. The goal is to maximize cash value with both of these. But more in the 15-pay, and when we look at it long term, it becomes more and more noticeable. See what's going on there? Same company, same health rating, same dividend rate, just different products. Great awareness here. Guardian, you've got the same product, their L95 policy, but two different PUA fees. 5% PUA fee, this will give you more cash value up front. It'll also give you more cash value up front and long term if we looked at the guaranteed values, looking at things very conservatively. And then the 10% PUA fee does have greater long-term potential. Potential being the key word. Based on the non-guarantees, you are going to see a difference here. Guarantees would be the opposite though. 5% has more from start to finish. So looking at this just provides a snapshot of the different options side by side. And frankly, as we ask questions and find out things such as, hey, I definitely want the option to go longer than 15 years, we might scratch that 15-pay option. However, before we look at the alternate scenarios, which display him continuously funding, the next thing we would do is go through the illustrations with one. Because if I want guidance and I want to make sure that everything's set up correctly, what I want to know is the policy set up in my best interest, not the agent's? And how do I know that? Like, what do I look for when I look at an illustration? Where? That's the key word. Where is your money going? Money can go where? Go back to the whiteboard. Premium with a PUA rider. Here's the premium, $2,000. Then we've got these other riders. I would check out any of our videos that go through how to read a detailed illustration as we break down all of the terms. But what you'll see here, there's your base premium, and you've got some going toward term insurance as well. It's not $1,000. That $1,000 is broken up between term insurance and then PUAs, but we do have term insurance attached. $20,000 in. Net cash value right out of the gates. $18,000 in change. Break-even point between years 4 and 5. So where's the money going? There's your 10% premium. We've got a small term rider, and we are plowing everything else into PUAs. 15-pay. Still with the same company. Is the premium any different? No. Premium at the same 10%. I want to make sure that the comparison is fair. Term, so we've got an additional term insurance rider, $132, very small, same thing. You've got some term up here. Again, that $868. It's a combination of money going toward term insurance and then PUAs. The purpose of this term insurance, because what we're doing is adding more life insurance to the policy, more death benefit, raises the death benefit. And if you're new to some of this, what does the death benefit have a direct relationship to? The answer is this. MEC limit, which represents modified endowment contract. We want to prevent a taxable event with the policy so we can reap the same tax benefits cash value life insurance provides. And we've got other videos that go through some of the tax benefits. All right, so there's your 15-pay policy. And then with Guardian, check this out. So you'll notice some different terminology here. This one's interesting. Here's your premium, a little bit less than 10%. But then what do you see here? 2 paid-up additions riders. This is your PUA. PUA is short for paid-up additions. But what do you notice about those terms? Scheduled and unscheduled. What's the difference? Scheduled means that you're making the premium payment or the PUA payment at the same time you're making your base premium payment. So what we did here was add a scheduled PUA of $1,181 and change. Where I came up with that number is adding those two together. It schedules $3,000 per year. Nice round number. We don't have to do that, but that's what I did. And a quick side note here, that scheduled PUA rider will first cover this OYT, 1-year term, which is your term rider cost, this $200 and change. So anytime we've got a scheduled PUA, what happens is it first satisfies the term cost, and then everything else is allocated into PUAs. And then unscheduled, what that represents is the fact that you can add PUAs on an unscheduled basis. It is optional. You do this by sending in a check, going on your online account. You can send money in at your leisure. You don't have to. There's no penalty if you don't do it. That question comes up sometimes. But what we're modeling here is a policy where we are committing to $3,000 a year and then dumping in an additional $17,000 per year into unscheduled PUAs, break even, just about year 5. And if we were to look at the other illustration, which is the 5% PUA fee, which is not this one, but I can pull it up. The 5% PUA fee breaks even right around year 4. You'll see that on the Excel workbook as well, as these are the illustrations. So let's hit on one thing here. This would be valuable. Remember this guy? So here's your high early cash value policy where you paid into it for 10 years. Nothing thereafter. What if this is you, this 31-year-old individual, and you said, originally I said at least 10 years. You know what? I've done well in my career. I want to keep on adding money, and I want to keep adding that $20,000 per year. I can do it, and I'd like to continue to feed this policy. I don't want to have to start a new one and go through the expenses again. I want to keep feeding this. Can I do that? The answer is yes. So here's the exact same policy. You can see that if we look at the year 10 cash value, it'll be identical to the last one, $229 and change. But what's the difference? Well, the difference is that you're going to keep on plowing money into this for 30 years in this particular case. So you can continue to do that. And then you can get real creative knowing that, hey, if I don't want to keep funding $20,000 per year, can I do 10? Yes. Can I do 5? Yes. Can I do just a base premium of 2? Yes. Can I stop after year 13 and do 0? Kind of like you showed with the 10-year example? Yes, you can do that. Can I pay $2,000 and then decide to go back up to $20,000? Yes, you can do that if you still have that 1-year term rider attached. If you don't, the company will likely require medical underwriting before accepting the money. They reserve the right to put one through underwriting. So that term rider is important there. So let's summarize this, because these are some options we would show an individual. First, exactly what he asked for, the 10-year funding scenario. Key differences between these, just to kind of recap here. This is a good option if you want to be able to keep adding money for a long time. This is a good option if you think 10 years is it, but maybe another 5 years, and you'd like to see a stronger internal rate of return. Because this policy, the 15-pay product, does have a stronger IRR on cash value than the high early cash value policy. It does have lower PUA fees as well, which is nice. Then with Guardian, this is a good option if you like the idea of committing to the minimum only. So call that 2K. We scheduled it at 3K total, but it does not have to be that high. But you can commit to the minimum, and then at leisure, you can just throw another 17K into the policy for the total of 20 grand a year, but you're not committed to it. And 10 years or less is realistic. That's what you think is likely going to happen. But if you decided, hey, I would like to keep adding money to the policy, well, you can with any of these. And here's what it looks like. So to the left, this is that illustration we looked at earlier, where we keep on going. Then the 15-pay policy, what we ran here, was the 20K per year through year 15. And then the L95 policies, what do we have here? Well, after the 10th year, funding just that 3K. You can do a little bit more than that, but with Guardian, once that death benefit starts to increase, that means the term rider has burnt out. The amount is no longer 10x the base premium, not without underwriting being required from the insurance company. We've got other videos that go through the specific limits on that. And we would discuss that with anyone interested in that says, hey, I want to keep funding a Guardian policy. What are the limits? So I have awareness of that. But that is an overview of how we would help this individual, or I should say, guide them to the decision that they feel is best for them. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let us know which option you would select if this was you. I'd be curious to know. Feel free to leave your answer down in the comments below. And as always, I hope this helps. Thanks so much. Hey guys, Steve Parisi here. If you enjoyed the content you just saw, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for future videos. If you'd like more information or to see some custom policies for yourself, feel free to call or email our offices at the contact information below.